So Jermall Charlo finally made his long-awaited return this Saturday, defeating Jose Benavidez by a wide unanimous decision. And after watching the fight and after having a little bit of retrospect on Jermall Charlo's career, and after really just analyzing what he's done, what he's achieved, and his ability, I need to straight up be the one to say it that Jermall Charlo has ended up being a massive disappointment. Now, this is very unfortunate because I was a big fan of Jermall Charlo back in 2016, say, when he fought Austin Trout, Cornelius Bundridge, Julian J. Rock Williams. I mean, this guy at 154 was very, very solid. I thought, honestly, he could have ended up being the best guy in the weight class. He was a very talented fighter, very elite, had explosive power, good fundamentals, was always entertaining, had a good chin, was a very durable fighter overall, and he was a guy that I was genuinely high on. However, I don't know exactly what ended up happening to Jermall Charlo, but unfortunately, and very, very unfortunately, genuinely, this guy's career has completely gone off the rails. He's accomplished virtually nothing since he's moved up to 160. Now, he became a 2-weight champion by beating Jorge Sebastian Hyland, stopping him in 4 rounds. And yes, that's an accolade, becoming a 2-weight champion. Yes, that's more than most fighters will ever dream of accomplishing. But Jermall Charlo is a guy who had so much potential, could have accomplished so much in his career. And once he moved up to 160, what did he really do? I mean, he beat Hyland. He beat Dennis Hogan, who was a blown-up 154-pounder. What else did he really do? What else did he really accomplish? I mean, he beat... Who did he even beat, honestly, man? He's done very little since moving up in weight, and it's really a shame, man. And now when you look at his career as of late, he's been extremely inactive. He's been fighting very sporadically. Sporadically is actually putting it lightly and giving him more credit than he should be getting. Sporadically is an exaggeration of how often he's been fighting. He's been fighting very, very infrequently. He fought once in 2020, he fought once in 2021, and he didn't fight at all in 2022. And he barely squeaked out a fight before 2023 ended, fighting around Thanksgiving time in 2023 against Jose Benavidez. And this is, you guys keep in mind, Jose Benavidez is a blown-up welterweight. This is a guy who fought Terrence Crawford at welterweight. I believe he fought Danny. I'm pretty sure he fought Danny Garcia at 154, but even that was, like, not the weight class that he's ever really done anything in. And now him being drawn all the way up to 160 to take on Jermall Charlo at a catchweight of 163 that Jermall Charlo still ended up missing by 3 pounds, bro. He ended up missing 163 by 3 pounds and coming in at 166. And even with all of the factors I've given you, he still didn't impress against Jose Benavidez. Is no one going to talk about the fact that this guy went 10 rounds and didn't even rock the same Jose Benavidez? Because I keep getting the names mixed up. I keep getting the Benavidez's mixed up, and I keep getting the Charlo's names mixed up. The same Jose Benavidez that got stopped by Terrence Crawford and dominated. I mean, he gave Crawford some issues, but overall dominated. Dominated by Danny Garcia. Yes, it was a majority decision, but he won, 3 rounds in that fight for being generous, ultra generous to him. This is a guy who got dominated in those 2 fights. Gave an effort, but got dominated. This is a guy that Charlo couldn't hurt at all. Couldn't truly batter or really beat up. He ended up winning clearly. No doubt about it. He deserved the victory. He won wide, but it wasn't an impressive outing at all. He never dropped him. I thought he was going to knock Benavidez out. I was wrong. And now he's trying to call out Caleb Plant and David Benavidez. This guy's career has ended up being a huge disappointment, and it's very unfortunate because Charlo was a guy who looked tremendous at one point. Let's be honest, guys. Jermall Charlo had pound-for-pound talent, without doubt. This is a very high-level, very highly skilled fighter, Jermall Charlo. I mean, he was extremely impressive at 154. Yes, he had that Austin Trout fight, which he kind of struggled in. Some people even thought Trout won. I didn't. I had Charlo winning, but he did struggle a little bit. It wasn't his best outing at all. But you guys got to keep in mind, Austin Trout at that point was still a very solid fighter. A very solid fighter. His only defeats came to Canelo Alvarez in a very competitive fight and to Arislan de Lara. He was on a little bit of a win streak as well before fighting Charlo. And Charlo, in my opinion, still deserved the win. Yes, it was a tough fight for him. It was an awkward outing for him, but he still deserved the victory overall. And you know what he did to J-Rock. I mean, the J-Rock performance was the peak of his career for sure. Will always be the best win of his career, but I don't know, man. Something changed in Charlo right after he knocked J-Rock out. Once he didn't shake his hand, I don't know what happened. Maybe he got what he deserved, but this guy knocked J-Rock out, and right after that, his career went downhill. He moved up in weight, stopped Hyland, and after the Hyland victory, he really, just scrolling on this box rec just to make sure I get all my facts straight, he really didn't do much, man. After beating Hyland, he really didn't do much. Yes, he knocked out Hugo Centeno Jr. in 2 rounds, and yes, that was a very, very impressive win, not due to the fact that Centeno was anything great. I mean, Selecki absolutely battered him and dominated him, but I felt how he was able to sensationally put him to sleep in 2 rounds. It was very impressive, and I think By April of 2018, now I'm contradicting myself because I just said right after the J-Rock fight, his career went downhill. I think his accolades went downhill, and just his stock went downhill. But you can make a very solid case that by April of 2018, after he knocked out Centeno, this is when everyone was calling for him to take on Canelo and Triple G. This is when his stock arguably actually was at its highest, because he came off multiple destructive performances in a row, knocking out J-Rock to knocking out Highland to knocking out Centeno. He looked great. But then he took on Matt Korobov, and that was a very bad performance, a fight he arguably lost. If he won it, he barely squeaked it out. This is a washed-up Korobov who took him on very late notice. Then he fought Brandon Adams, and, once again, a very bad performance from Jermall Charlo. I know Adams fought in survival mode, but overall it was a very, very bad performance from Charlo when it comes to... He looked very flat. He looked very uninspired. He got the victory, but no one was impressed from it. No one even talks about that fight. It was a very forgettable matchup. I forgot it happened. Dennis Hogan, that was probably his last. I mean, you could say Derevyanchenko won as well, but that was probably his last very solid performance. You can argue Derevyanchenko as well was a great performance. A lot of people, including myself, were picking Derevyanchenko to win. And I do want to add the fight was much closer than the scorecards and people said, but the point stands. That was probably Charlo's last solid performance, because Montiel was his worst performance of his career, without doubt. He looked terrible against a guy that was stopped in a couple rounds by Carlos Adames and a couple rounds by Jaime Munguia. He looked awful against Montiel. And against Jose Benavidez Jr., it was just a flat, uninspiring performance. He kind of had to brawl a little bit with a guy moving up from 154, who only had one fight at 154, I believe. Moved all the way up to 160 catch weight, 163 catch weight, still couldn't make weight. I mean, Charlo, he ended up really, really disappointing. And I think the biggest proof of Charlo being a disappointment for what he could have been, and yes, he still has time, and I am cheering him on to get his life together and really pick his career back up. But the biggest validation and verification of Jermall really disappointing is how great Jermell's career was for a period of time prior to the Canelo fight. Jermall Charlo ended up becoming undisputed at 154. This is a guy in Jermell who no one considered as good as Jermall when they were both at 154. He was a guy that was considered the lesser of the two. He had a lot of flaws. He lost to Tony Harrison, etc. This guy overcame all of that and ended up clearing out 154 basically. And he basically cleared out the weight class. Yes, now there's Tim Tszyu, but before that, before Tim Tszyu really came into the picture, he cleared out the weight class. I mean, when he beat Castano, yes, Tim Tszyu was his mandatory, but no one was really calling for that fight. Tim Tszyu's stock wasn't as high as it is now. Jermall Charlo wiped out 154, beating Castano, Rosario when he was unified, beating Tony Harrison in the rematch. I mean, he had 154. He took it all out, basically. And when you look at Jermell taking out 154, and then you look at Jermall, who moved up to 160 and did virtually nothing at that weight class. Who's his best win at 160, guys? Who's his best win objectively at 160? I mean, I'm thinking about it. You can't say Brandon Adams. I would say Derevyanchenko, right? Derevyanchenko is his best win at 160. That's a good win, an underrated win, but it's not enough. My dog might start barking now. I apologize if he does, because the car just pulled up. Yes, Derevyanchenko was a good win, but that really wasn't enough in my opinion, and it definitely isn't enough for what he's capable of doing, and hopefully he can sort his career out. But yeah, I'm going to wrap this video up now. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you want to see from Jermall? What do you expect next from him? Thank you guys for watching. If you made it this far, I truly appreciate it. God bless. Have a good one. Peace.